My son told me I had to leave my own house before midnight. He thought I was too old to fight back. What he didn't know was that 3 days earlier, I had discovered exactly why he wanted me gone. Mom, you have until midnight to pack. My son Daniel said those words while standing in the kitchen of the house I had spent 26 years paying for. I stared at him. Then I looked at his wife, Melissa. Neither of them looked angry. That was what frightened me. They looked prepared. I slowly put my coffee cup down. Pack for where? Daniel crossed his arms. I don't care. A hotel. A friend's house. Anywhere. You just can't stay here tonight. I felt something tighten in my chest. My own house? Daniel sighed. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. That sentence told me more than he realized. Because people only say don't make this harder * when they've already decided what they want and don't want you asking questions. I looked at the clock. 8:17 p.m. 3 hours and 43 minutes. That was how much time my only son thought I needed to disappear from my own home. But there was something Daniel didn't know. 3 days earlier, I had found a document hidden in my basement. And after reading it, I realized this wasn't about repairs. It wasn't about my safety. It wasn't even about my age. My son was trying to take something from me. And he had no idea that I had already discovered the plan. My name is Eleanor Harper. I'm 71 years old. And Daniel is my only child. I raised him alone after his father died when Daniel was 16. Those were difficult years. I worked during the day at a medical billing office. At night, I cleaned offices downtown. I didn't have much money. But I had determination. When Daniel got accepted into college, he was afraid we couldn't afford it. I remember him standing in the doorway with tears in his eyes. Mom, we can't pay for this. I smiled. Yes, we can. He never knew what that cost me. I sold jewelry. I emptied a small investment account. I worked extra shifts. I did everything I could. Not because I expected him to repay me. I was his mother. And mothers don't keep invoices for love. Daniel graduated. He got a good job. He married Melissa. For years, I believed we were close. Then the questions started. How much do you have saved? How much is left on the mortgage? Which bank do you use? What would happen if you needed assisted living? At first, I thought they were concerned. Then the questions became more personal. Where do you keep your financial documents? Do you have all your passwords written down? Who would handle your accounts if something happened? I always answered carefully, not because I didn't love my son. Because I had learned something over 70 years. Love does not require you to surrender control of your life, *. Daniel didn't like that. You should let me help you. I appreciate that. You don't have to do everything yourself anymore. I smiled. I know, but I continued managing my own affairs. And that independence slowly became something Daniel resented. *. 3 days before the midnight ultimatum, I went into my basement looking for an old insurance policy. There was a storage room beneath the stairs. I kept old photographs there. Tax documents. Daniel's childhood drawings. Christmas decorations. I opened a box marked * medical. Underneath several old papers was an envelope I didn't recognize. There was no name on it. Only 3 words. Do not file, *. I almost put it back. Then I recognized the handwriting. Melissa's. I opened it. Inside was an email. The subject line made my hands go cold. House transfer, next steps. I read it once. Then again. It wasn't a message about repairs. It was a conversation with an attorney. My house was being discussed. There were references to refinancing, property transfer, temporary occupancy, and then I saw Daniel's name. They were planning to move me out. Temporarily. They wanted me somewhere else while paperwork was completed. I kept reading. Then I saw the sentence that made my stomach turn. Once Eleanor is out of the property, the remaining steps should be straightforward, ***. I sat down on the basement floor. They had already made a plan. A plan that depended on one thing. Me cooperating. But I wasn't going to tell them I knew. I remembered something my late husband used to say. When someone is planning something behind your back, don't warn them that you've discovered it. So I put the email back exactly where I'd found it. And I waited. The next morning Daniel called. Mom, we need to talk about the house. What about it? There are some serious maintenance issues. What kind? Plumbing, electrical, maybe structural. I almost laughed. The house had recently passed inspection. But I said nothing. Daniel continued. You really shouldn't stay there alone. I've lived here alone for years. That's different now. How? He paused. Then he said the words I knew were coming. You're getting older. I looked out the window. I feel fine. You always say that. I usually am. He became quiet. Then he said, Sometimes people don't realize when they're no longer capable of making good decisions. I understood immediately. This wasn't just about the house. They were building a story. A story where I was old, confused, unable to manage my own affairs. And they were the responsible family members stepping in to help. I thanked him for calling. Then I hung up, and immediately called an attorney. Her name was Patricia Morgan. I showed her the email. She read it carefully, then looked at me. Did you authorize this? No. Did you sign anything? No. Did you give them permission to refinance your house? No. She closed the folder. Then don't confront them yet. Why? Because right now, they think they're ahead. She helped me protect my accounts. She reviewed the property records. She made sure nothing could be transferred without my authorization. Then she looked at me. Let them continue believing they have control. I nodded. For the first time in several days, I felt calm. Because I finally understood something. Daniel and Melissa weren't improvising. They had a plan. And now I had one too. That evening, Daniel and Melissa arrived together. Melissa carried a folder. Daniel looked serious. Neither of them said hello. Daniel pointed toward the kitchen chair. Mom, sit down. I sat. Melissa placed the folder in front of me. Daniel said, we need to make some changes. What kind of changes? You need to leave the house for a little while. Why? Repairs. What repairs? It's complicated. Then explain it. Neither of them did. Instead, Melissa opened the folder. Inside were several documents. And then I saw it. A power of attorney document. I looked at Daniel. You brought this here? Yes. Why? So we can handle things for you. I don't need you to handle my house. Daniel's face hardened. Mom, you're being stubborn. No, you're making emotional decisions. No, you're not listening. I am listening. I closed the folder. I'm just not agreeing. Melissa stood. You don't understand what we're trying to do for you. I looked directly at her. I understand exactly what you're trying to do. Both of them froze. Daniel's face changed. What do you mean? I almost told him. I almost placed the email on the table. But I stopped. Not yet. Instead, I said, I'm not leaving my house. Daniel stared at me. Then he whispered something to Melissa. She nodded. And Daniel looked back at me. Fine. His voice was suddenly cold. You leave us no choice. That's when he gave me the ultimatum. Pack by midnight. I looked at the clock. 8:17. Or what? He didn't answer. Melissa did. Or we'll have to involve other people. What people? She wouldn't say. Daniel finally spoke. People who can determine whether you're capable of living here safely. My heart sank. There it was. The real plan. They weren't simply trying to get me out. They were preparing to make me look incapable of staying. I stood slowly. You should leave. Daniel laughed. You think you're in control? I looked at him. No. I paused. I know I am. They left. But I didn't sleep. At 11:42 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was Patricia. Don't worry. I handled the filing. Asterisk. I stared at the message. Then another appeared. They cannot legally transfer or refinance the property without your authorization. Asterisk. I finally breathed. But then another message appeared. This one made my blood run cold. There's something else you need to know. The documents they prepared reference a second property. Asterisk. I read the message twice. A second property? Why would Daniel need my house to buy another property? Then Patricia sent one final message. Call me immediately. I found out what they plan to use your financial information for. Asterisk. I stared at the screen. And suddenly, the house wasn't the thing I was most afraid of losing. Because whatever Daniel and Melissa were planning was much bigger than I had imagined.